Okay, here's part 2 of John Piper's foreword. Beginning on page 13, paragraph 2. There is no death of sin without the death of Christ. This is from Of the Mortification of Sin in Believers, chapter 7. Owen loves the cross and knows what happened there better than anyone I have read. The battle with sin that you are about to read about is no superficial technique of behavior modification. It is a profound dealing with what was accomplished on the cross in relation to the supernatural working of the Holy Spirit through the deep and wonderful mysteries of faith. To kill sin is the work of living men. This is a quote, another paragraph. To kill sin is the work of living men. Where men are dead, as all the unbelievers, the best of them are dead, sin is alive and will live. That's from chapter 7. Oh, the pastoral insights that emerge from Owen. As here, if you are fighting sin, you are alive. Take heart, but if sin holds sway unopposed, you are dead, no matter how lively the sin makes you feel. Take heart, embattled saint. God says, here's a quote, God says, here is one, if he could be rid of this lust, I should never hear of him more. Let him wrestle with this, or he is lost. End quote. Chapter 8. Astonishing, God ordains to leave a lust with me till I become the sort of warrior who will still seek his aid when this victory is won. God knows when we can bear the triumphs of his grace. Quote from Owen, beginning. Is there the guilt of any great sin lying upon you unrepented of? A new sin may be permitted, as well as a new affliction sent, to bring an old sin to remembrance. End quote. Chapter 9. What? God ordains that we be tested by another sin so that an old one might be better known and fought. Sin is one of God's weapons against sin. Another quote coming up. The difference between believers and unbelievers is, as to knowledge, is not so much in the matter of their knowledge as in the manner of knowing. Unbelievers, some of them, may know more and be able to say more of God, his perfections, and his will than many believers, but they know nothing as they ought, nothing in a right manner, nothing spiritually and savingly, nothing with a holy heavenly light. The excellency of a believer is not that he has a large apprehension of things, but that what he does apprehend, which perhaps may be very little, he sees it in the light of the Spirit of God, in a saving, soul-transforming light. And this is that which gives us communion with God, and not prying thoughts or curious raised notions. End quote. Chapter 12. How then will we labor to help people know much and know it in a right manner? The in a right manner was quoted from Owen. What is that? Another quote. Christ is the head from whence the new man must have influences of life and strength, or it will decay every day. End quote. Chapter 14. Oh, that our people would feel the urgency of daily supplies of grace, because, quote, grace decays, end quote. Do they know this? It is a category. Is it a category in their mind that grace decays? How many try to live their lives on automatic pilot with no sense of urgency? That means of grace are given so that riches of Christ may daily be obtained with fresh supplies of grace. The list could go on and on. For me to read Owen is to wake up to ways of seeing that are so clearly biblical that I wonder how I could have been so blind. May that be your joyful experience as well. John Piper, Pastor for Preaching and Vision, Bethlehem Baptist Church, Minneapolis. That was the foreword. Check my time on the camera. Excuse me, 5 minutes. The preface by Justin Taylor. Reading John Owen, why a new edition? Reading Owen is worth the effort. One of our goals in publishing this volume is to reintroduce John Owen to the church today, and one of the hindrances in the way of his reception is his reputation for being hard to read. There is no glossing over the fact that studying Owen's writings requires hard work. But we would also insist, alongside many of the great saints in the history of the church, that the effort required to read Owen is richly repaid. We agree with the judgment of J.I. Packer regarding Owen's works. Quote, I did not say that it was easy to read them. That would not be true. Yet I do venture to say that the labor involved in plodding through these ill-arranged and tediously written treatises will find them abundantly worthwhile. End quote. Our goal has been to produce a faithful and accurate edition of Owen's writings on sin and temptations that begins to overcome some of these barriers to understanding his profound and practical insights and instruction. Owen's writing style. In order to understand Owen's literary style, it is worth quoting Packer at length. Quote, there is no denying that Owen is heavy and hard to read. This is not so much due to obscure arrangement as to two other factors. The first is his lumbering literary gait. Owen travels through his subject with the elephant's grace and solid step, if sometimes also with his ungainly motion, says Andrew Thompson. That was a quote just now. Owen travels through was a quote by Andrew Thompson. Back to Packer's words. That puts it kindly. Much of Owen's prose reads like a roughly dashed-off translation of a piece of thinking done in Ciceronian Latin. It has, no doubt, a certain clumsy dignity, so has Stonehenge, but it is trying to the reader to have to go over sentences 2 or 3 times to see their meaning. And this necessity makes it much harder to follow an argument. The present writer, however, has found that the hard places in Owen usually come out as soon as one reads them aloud. The second obscuring factor is Owen's austerity as an expositor. He has a lordly disdain for broad introductions, which ease the mind gently into a subject, and for comprehensive summaries, which gather up scattered points into a small space. He obviously carries the whole of his design in his head, and expects his readers to do the same. Nor are his chapter divisions reliable pointers to the discourse, for though a change of subject is usually marked by a chapter division, Owen often starts a new chapter where there is no break in the thought at all. Nor is he concerned about literary proportions. The space given to a topic is determined by its intrinsic complexity rather than its relative importance, and the reader is left to work out what is basic and what is secondary by noting how things link together. Gotta stop again.